Hey everyone, my name is Sam and thanks for checking out this video. If you get to the end and enjoyed it, then hit the subscribe button, the bell notification button, and the like button. So I had chaos, so I wasn't able to do my wrap-up last week, so this week is kind of a combination, which is making things difficult because I read basically a book a day through these whole 2 weeks almost, and basically only one of them, well, kind of, maybe two, were a reread. So, yeah. So first off, I finally finished An Echo in the Bone by Diana Gabaldon. This is a reread for me. I give it 5 out of 5 stars. Other than Outlander and Voyager, I think it's my, one of the, top 3 of this series. And especially because Fiery Cross is much more of a filler book, so it is a much slower pace. This one is huzzah. Then I read my arc that I had of Dealing in Dreams by Lilian Rivera. I think in the end I gave it about a 3.5 out of 5 stars. It's a standalone, which are always difficult, and I like the world and the concept of these kind of, it's almost like a Las Vegas without any sort of laws or anything, and there are these Republic people and these other, and she wants to essentially prove her worth to sort of the monarchy of her megacity and go out and to these other kind of rebellious areas and kind of prove her worth. And she finds out along the way that a lot of what she's been told is wrong about herself specifically, but she also starts questioning everything that's going on in the megacity. Sort of the simplest way I can say that is, I think the beginning, I struggled with the writing. It felt very info-dumpy, and I don't think the world was really developed. You were just kind of thrown information that they thought you would need, or not they, that the author thought you would need in order to comprehend. And it picked up once, the halfway-ish mark or so, and I really did enjoy it afterwards, but I did struggle with the very info-dumpy feeling. Overall, I really did like the message, though. It's very much equality for people and treat people with decency, and the problems of drugs especially is quite raised here. It was actually quite interesting. Specifically, one of the scenes there is essentially a strip club, but it's all men and sexualizing them the way that we do with women in our culture. So that was really interesting to just see, because that's really not something I think I've really ever seen. So overall, it's a solid 3.5 or 3.75 out of 5 stars. I'll keep an eye out for the author, and maybe she'll release something more in the future that I'll be interested in. And then I read The Paragon Hotel by Litsy. If you've ever watched a video on my channel in the last couple of weeks, really months, I love Litsy. She's kind of an instant buy author for me. And The Paragon Hotel is her most recent historical fiction. There was an awful lot of things raised here. So our main character shows up in Oregon to this hotel, and essentially kind of this place that really straddles the black community and the white community's geographical borders in Portland. And she shows up with bullet wounds. So it's kind of chaos from the beginning, and she immediately strikes up kind of a help from this main character, Max, who is a part of the Paragon Hotel, which is where most of this takes place. And Max helps her, and they do kind of have this conflict because the main character is a white woman, and she's kind of placing herself in this black community that she herself doesn't really know about. However, we get to know that she does, she is definitely from a lower income area in the Harlem, and her father that she never knew and passed away before she was born was likely Italian, and so she's aware of some of the conflicts that she's seen in New York City. Now, this was something I really had, I'm Canadian, so I mean, I don't even know that Americans generally know this. The friend that I talked to about this, Googled it when I mentioned it, and she lives in, the area. She's like, oh, I didn't know that. But, it was illegal for black people to live in Oregon, in Portland especially, but I mean, they definitely moved there, but, that was just, and this was after, the Civil War. That was just very weird to hear, because all I think of when I think of, Portland is, alpacas riding the public transit. It's this kind of jokey, trolly, hipstery coffee kind of place. That's all I think of. So this was really interesting. I had no idea. I thought it was really interesting that I don't think it was done. Litsy is a white author, so I thought this was interesting and kind of gutsy to take on. But it came across to me that she did a ton of research on this, and I feel like she did a good good, like she did it justice. Like I said, I literally had no idea that this was a thing, and I googled it and now I know. I learned from this. But she also has the black characters of this, like of this hotel, also have a voice and it's quite interesting. They all have very distinctive, memorable personalities, which I thought was going to be difficult for me because there were just like a lot of characters in this hotel kind of thrown together. But I love Max. I really enjoyed the romance in this because it's not very like one true pairing insta-lovey. I think it's just like, we're attracted to each other. You know, let's do something about this. And it took on this whole interracial relationship thing. And then there is this kind of potential kidnapping, and then the KKK, which, again, not something I'd ever associate with Portland, Oregon. So that was just interesting, and just listening to some of the things that like these like some elitist white people are like, oh, the KKK are just like these nice like gentlemen, and like they just want to help all people, and as long as you're, you know, they don't want to let us women in, but they're good, whisper, so long as you're a cis-straight white man who's Christian. Like, it was just so interesting to see how, I don't know how far we've come like politically, but I think like logically we all know for the most part in this world now that like that is incorrect, and like treating people as that way is messed up. But I really, really enjoyed it. I am definitely going to keep reading Lindsay Faye's books, and I learned something new from this book, and I really enjoyed it. I binged it in like a day and a half while working, and I really highly recommend it. It was really, really interesting. Then I did a reread of Ashe Princess by Laura Sebastian. I like it. It's dark. It's groomy. I'm going to pick up the book. The sequel, Lady Smoke. I'm going to try and squeeze it into April. If not, it's on my May TBR. And Rebellion Ensuing in sequel. It has to be. Then I read Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. This is my first Brandon Sanderson book. I own the first 3 books of the Mistborn trilogy. I've had conflicts reading this author because he has some problematic views, but I picked this up on when it was on sale at Indigo, and I really, really like this cover, and it's a YA, so I was kind of curious because everything else he had written that I'd seen was all adult stuff, and I'm interested in this kind of sci-fi realm, as long as it's not like a sci-fi opera, because I feel like I get very lost very quickly in those, which was where my concern was, because everything I know about Mistborn is it's like super high fantasy, so I was scared. But if you are like that, do not worry, it is not a super high sci-fi opera. It is it doesn't remind me of Illuminae, like plot-wise or anything, but I feel like sci-fi level, it's very, like, it's comprehensible for someone like me who's scared of space opera. So our main character, Spensa, wants to become a pilot in this kind of, just imagine it like the planet Mars, essentially. We've relocated a bunch of the population, and they have been shipwrecked on this planet, and there's, like, their evil nemesis spaceship, essentially, like kind of just floating off in the distance, that they keep kind of making consistent attacks on the planet, so they have to have pilots and such to protect themselves. And Spensa wants to be a pilot, however, the issue is her father was a pilot, and they believe he was a traitor and killed a bunch of his pilots. And so they refuse to take her in, so she has to get creative. Her family is also super poor, and she starts trying to figure out exactly what happened with her father, because she said she's heard so many different things, and she knew him for a couple of years of her life, and then her mom says other things, so she just really wants to be a pilot. So there's just tons of politics unraveling in this. There's not a super ton amount of action, but there is lots going on. One thing that kind of struck me as odd, and I think that's why in the end, I think I gave this like a 4 out of 5 stars, or if not, if I did give it a 5 out of 5 stars, it's kind of weird to me that like they're like, oh, we only take the most elitist of the elite, and only like the top 2 of each piloting class, succeed and graduate and whatever, and you're like, but then like they literally have the kids in their first class of pilot school like go up and attack these like the people like attacking them from that distant spaceship. And you're like, this is your first day of school. Like, can you imagine going to like first year English in like university, and they're like, okay, so you're gonna lead a lecture to this PhD class now. Like, what? And also they're like, oh yeah, the school, like the class for this pilot, like to become this elite pilot's only 6 months long. Like, what? But I like Spensa a lot. I'm curious to see where the rest of it's going to go. There's definitely some hints of potential romance, but it's not the main focus. She's really, really strong. She's really likable, and she overcomes a lot. She's really, like, gung-ho of, like, I'm going to do this. I don't care what's in my way. I am going to become a pilot. This week I also tried to read The Republic of Pirates by Colin Woodard, and unfortunately I DNF'd this one. I was listening to the audiobook and I gave up a little over the 3-hour mark. Unfortunately, it was very info dump heavy. There wasn't much of a narration, even though that it seemed like they tried. The author did try to make that, but I think the biggest hindrance for me was the audiobook narrator is very... If you've ever seen Ferris Bueller, then you'll know that scene where the guy, I think he's like the history teacher, political science teacher is taking attendance, and he's like, Fry. Yeah, that's basically the narrator's voice. Then I read Four Dead Queens by Astrid Schultz. This is another fantasy standalone. I am trash for this cover. I was very hesitant about this because I was like, oh, fantasy standalones can be kind of hit or miss, and this feels like, from the summary, it sounds kind of very tropey. However, first of all, it's not labeled on Goodreads anywhere. I looked, like, literally last night. There is LGBT rep in here, just in case anyone was looking. And it's actually, for a fantasy standalone, I'm kind of impressed, especially considering, like, it's not fantasy standalone Priory of the Orange Tree, like 800 pages. It's regular, like 350-ish? Sorry, 400 pages fantasy. And it's so interesting. So we know right off the bat from the summary that, and this is the title, this realm is ruled, essentially, it's split into quadrants, and there's a queen for each of them. And this is all because the king that ruled them before married 4 different women. He was chaotic and all over the place. So when he died, they decided, okay, each queen will kind of be in charge. And they have this setup that these queens are not allowed to marry, but they are required once they hit the age of majority to try and start having a daughter. If they have sons, they're given away to other families. They have to have a daughter. And chaos begins, as like right away. They are clearly having some conflicts between the 4 queens. It's kind of common. You're trying to kind of 4-way rule an area, and each of them has their own kind of specialty. Some science, some is, you know, labor and all that stuff. Then all of a sudden one of the queens is killed, and slowly throughout the book, each one is killed off. And so we get some of the POV from the queens, but we also get the POV of a main character who I thought right from the beginning had to be like, it had to be a lineage reveal. Like, she had to be of like some distant relations to the queens. I was so sure of it. Yeah, so she gets involved because of kind of her upbringing and the job that she's kind of roped into working. She starts going into the actual like castle and trying to figure out who exactly is doing this and how to stop it. I really, really liked all of the queens, like their characters. They don't have a ton of time to develop themselves, especially the first one, like she's killed right off the bat. But each time, like we get to know Queen 1, they try to introduce Queen 2, 3, and 4. And then when Queen 2 gets killed off after Queen 1, we at least get some interaction between Queen 2 and Queen 3 and 4. So we definitely know Queen 4 the best by the end. And I was not expecting the twist. I was so sure of like everything. I don't know why. I'm never right. I'm never right about this stuff, really. I liked the twist at the end. Like, it didn't feel cheap or cheated to me. I really, really liked it. I liked getting this sudden, like, there's several twists at the end, but, like, this new, like, I feel like that they did a good job of, like, the evil person. Like, I don't hate that person as much as I feel like I should. They have a variety of reasons for doing what they did. And obviously, like, don't kill people, but, like, you can kind of understand where she's coming from. Don't always agree with her, but I get it, right? So there's that ability to write a great character, which I feel like is kind of difficult. Again, doing all this in only 400 pages. So I'd actually really highly recommend this one. I believe it's also a debut, which I think was why I was even more impressed. I feel like duologies and trilogies are a little bit easier. You have more time to develop the characters of the world and everything. And though this world wasn't super developed, you get a general sense of the conflicts in it and why people are doing what they're doing in this. So overall, give this like a 4 or 5 out of 5. I want to say a 4 out of 5 stars. I checked this right before, and then as soon as I film, like, everything leaves my brain. I'm sorry. But thoroughly enjoyed, and I actually recommend this one, and I feel like the cover does it justice. I think it's a good cover, considering the actual story. Then in a couple hours, I powered through The Boleyn King by Laura Anderson. Full warning, full disclosure, if you are a fan of historical fantasies with lots of action, this is not the book for you. It is a historical fiction, alternative history. There is not really any adventuring or questing. It's all political drama and romance and backstabbing. If you are someone like me, who for some reason are obsessed for, I don't know why, but insanely obsessed with the entire political religious conflict that happened during, like, just after the War of the Roses with Henry VIII and all of his wives. This is a good one for you. So this concept is, if Anne Boleyn didn't lose her head, if she had a son after she had Elizabeth, and Henry didn't, I don't know if that's really, it's hard to say if he actually thought it, but like, or was manipulated, but like in history he thought, or she was beheaded, being accused of having multiple affairs, including an affair with her own brother. And so he was also killed. And this all happened after she gave birth to a stillborn son, and then I think miscarried a couple times with boys. We meet her son, William, and it's interesting. Boleyn herself isn't the main focus. That's just the general, like, what if this had happened? And that's the path you go down. It still did a really good job, though, even it went to this new realm of like, oh, what if this happened? It didn't erase all of the actual political religious factors going on in this world, because they still would be relevant even if Anne Boleyn had had a boy. He still left his wife and went against the Pope in order to marry Anne Boleyn. So it's not clean cut. It's literally just like the continuation of that political issue. I'm very curious to see where book 2 is going to go. There's like a murder kind of potential thing that happens in it, so it's kind of a murder mystery. Then I squeezed in We Set the Dark on Fire by Taylor K. Magia. This is book 1, and I believe it's supposed to be a 3-book series. And as the title says, let rebellion burn. This is an interesting concept, but it's set in this world where girls, elite girls, go to this, it's almost like, what do they call them? Like the school, like the, where they sent the girls during Victorian era, like, go learn how to sew so you can be a good wife. That kind of, finishing schools, right? Yeah, that thing. And so, but the whole concept is you, at the end of the school, need to be essentially purchased by one of like the local elite boys. They'll want one wife to do all of like the political wife duties, go to events and keep the house running. And then you have the other wife who's like the, I don't want to say side piece, but like she's the one you make sure has babies, okay? And so our main character, however, has snuck into this. Her parents purchased fake papers so that they think she's higher up than she actually is, and she's about to graduate from the school, top of her class, and be purchased basically by the next president of this country. This country is very heavily divided. By the way, this country is like definitely Spain or Mexico or somewhere like that, okay? So I definitely say Mexico based on a lot of the names. Like as soon as like she graduated, essentially gets bribed and blackmailed, and things go from there. There's the rebellion, and she has to pick sides because the rebellion is the side that she's on, like just from her upbringing, but as well as her husband is a politician, like by definition. He has this political thing, but if she doesn't do what he wants, he's snaps. There's LGBT rep in here as well. I liked the LGBT romance, I think, more than like any of the potential kind of stuff maybe happening with other characters. I feel like it was superior. The ending threw me for a loop. Did not see that coming. And I just, yeah, actually, I really enjoyed this. The last book that I read was Give the Dark My Love by Beth Revis. This book, I've never actually read Beth Revis. I bought Across the Universe a couple years ago and I never actually read it, and then I gave it to my mom, I believe. It's got like necromancy, alchemy kind of stuff. But once again, our main character from a very poor family is suddenly awarded a scholarship that will allow her to go train as an, essentially like a kind of like a village medicine woman kind of concept, and she's supposed to go train at this like elite university to learn. However, this world has a black plague essentially, and they don't know what's causing it, and the elite who predominantly aren't getting it are just calling it like the poor people's curse. And she's kind of the from this like out northern community which never gets doctors, and she wants to be able to help. That's her whole concept. So she immediately goes into the school, and they're like, okay, you're behind, you're gonna have to like, you know, do extracurriculars. So she starts doing that and focusing on trying to figure out this illness, which turns people's appendages black. And if you can't amputate in time, then you're dead. Or sometimes it immediately shows up in the heart, in which case you're a goner, unfortunately. I appreciate the cover more now. I didn't even notice it until I actually started reading, but like the main cover, like she's holding light on this side, and this side her fingers are like black, which is like the black kind of plague in here. So I thought that was really cool. I enjoyed the general concept. I like that she was really interested in science. Like that's her whole goal. She's a really good person. And even when it technically goes against the grain, she doesn't seem to have any difficulty deciphering like, I know that's the law or that's the rule, but that's wrong. Like, there's a reason that's wrong. This is the reason, and I'm going to go do what's actually right, even if it's against the rule. One thing I detested in this, it does the full, stupid, unnecessary romance. It adds 0 to the plot, 0 to the character development. I actually think it takes away from her character development. It does nothing for me. It's cheesy. It's unnecessary. It's just, As a writer, if you're writing YA, please, before you start writing a romance, because automatically, as soon as there's a main character that are one male and one female, they have to be together and be one true pairing and be in love with each other immediately. Please think, what is the purpose of this? And can I do this without a romance? If so, do it, because we will be more floored that you do it without the romance, because it's just always unnecessary. So that was the reason I ended up giving like a 3.5 out of 5 stars. On the off chance a writer watches this, you don't have to have a romance and everything. Just know that. So those are all the books that I read in the past 2 weeks. Let me know in the comment section down below what you read this week, or these past 2 weeks. I would love to know. And let me know if you've read any of these books and what your thoughts were. Make sure to check the description box down below. I will link all of these books to their Goodreads pages, and I will also link all of my social media. If you follow me, I will follow you back.